All right, everybody, and welcome back to Late Night History with Mr. Michael. No, not really, just kidding. Anyway, so today we talked about the Reformation and how different leaders wanted to reform the church and eventually ended forming what we'll call Protestant faith or protesting faiths. Okay, so I want you to imagine for a second that you're the head of the Catholic Church and you're losing all this power, and all these people are leaving the church, which means you're losing wealth, you're losing influence over people's lives, and so you're starting to get worried. So I want you to think, how would you go about changing and fixing that problem that they were having? Well, so the head of the church at the time, the Pope, was a guy named Paul III. And so what Paul III did was he said, we've got to come up with a solution. And so the solution was he got together the cardinals at a meeting, and they're meeting right here. It's called the Council of Trent. And it's really the Councils of Trent. They met several different times. Okay? And so the Councils of Trent, called by Pope Paul III, what they did was they helped establish the Catholic plan to keep people from leaving the church and to solidify their beliefs and to make sure that they remained powerful and saved people and were faithful to God all at the same time. So he had to come up with a plan. And so his plan had 3 steps. Okay, so I want you to think about any situation where you're losing people, you're a business, who's losing customers, you're a school who's losing students. Then what are you going to do? Okay, what are you going to do to make things better? Well, the Pope, first of all, did a couple of things. So first of all, the Council of Trent first thing it did was they decided to hire help. So step 1 is they decided to hire better help. Remember, one of the main complaints against the church was that their priests were illiterate, uneducated, having babies off on the side, and weren't very faithful to the church doctrine that the church believes. And so one of the ways that they did this was the Pope helped to found a new monastic order, or authorized the creation of a new group of monks. And this group of monks was headed by a guy named Ignatius Loyola, who we'll talk about in a second, who was one of the major reformers of the Catholic Reformation. He was a Catholic guy who really solidified and helped to save the Catholic Church, and he formed what's called the Society of Jesus. It's a group of monks who spread and sought to spread religion throughout the world. And the Jesuits, they're called, the Jesuit priests, are really known for establishing schools for education. They're known for going to Latin America and spreading religion there, spreading Catholicism there, and throughout the world. So hire some better help, better educated, more faithful, more fervent. That means like really awesome, like really not awesome, but really excited about their faith. To hire better help and to solidify their faith there. Step number 2, eliminate the competition. If you've got competition, you're going to try to take that competition out. Now, the competition for the Catholics or the Protestants. So if somebody's going to believe that in something different from the faith, the Catholics just said, fine, let them go do what they're doing. But what they decided to do instead was, we're going to try to keep people who are in the faith, we're going to keep them faithful. And what they did was they issued what's called the Inquisitions. Inquisitions are inquiries or questionings that had been used throughout history in several different times when groups of people felt that they needed to question or go against the church and challenge the church. The Diet of Worms that Martin Luther faced was basically an inquisition. So the Inquisition basically scared people into remaining Catholic and into staying Catholic. The Inquisition was used to persecute witches, used to persecute all sorts of different things, basically questioning people about their faith. Well, did you do this? No. Well, why? And so they really tried to scare people into staying Catholic. Step number 3 of their plan to reform the Catholic Church was to control the media. We're really going to control what they said. One of the problems was the printing press. Everybody was reading. People were reading all these different books, and so what they came up with was something called the Index of Forbidden Books. It was a group of books that Catholics were not supposed to read because they went against church doctrine. For example, there's a guy named Galileo. Galileo, who we'll look at a little bit later, said that it's not the sun revolving around the earth. Well, he really extends upon this. This is an older theory. But it is the earth revolving around the sun. Well, the church said, no, that's not cool at all. We're not going to go for that. And so they put it on a list of banned books. And if you read that as a Catholic, you were going to hell, basically. There were all sorts of other books on there. Obviously, the 95 Theses. Obviously, Institutes of the Christian Religion were on there because they challenged and went against Catholic belief and Catholic dogma or doctrine, what it meant to be a Catholic. And so those are the three steps they took. One, Pope Paul III called the Council of Trent, and they said, we got to hire more help. So they got better priests with the lead of Loyola. Two, they wanted to eliminate the competition. They issued the Inquisition, questioned people, wanted basically to scare people into remaining faithful Catholics. And three, they tried to control the media with the use of the index and forbidden books. They said, if you read this book, you're not a Catholic because it does not go along and it does not agree with what we say. And if you read this book, we're going to kick you out and excommunicate you, which means you're going to hell and you're ostracized from society. Not a good situation to be in. Well, let's come back and let's talk a little bit about Loyola. So turn back in your notes to the section where we talked about the actions of the reformers and the lives of the reformers. So let's talk about, first of all, who was Loyola? Ignatius Loyola was a guy who lived from 1491 to 1546. And he was a soldier. And he got hurt fighting a war. And he was laid up in this old castle. And he didn't have anything else to do. And so all he had time for was to read. And so what he did was he read the Bible, and he read some other works and about the lives of saints and all the good things they did. And that made him a more faithful Catholic because of all of that. Well, while he didn't exactly break with the church, he said Catholicism and the idea that you can get to heaven by doing good things is good. The elaborate procedures that are involved in a Catholic church service, they're good. And so he wrote a book called Spiritual Exercises, in which he basically says, no, these things are good things. By living our life in a very, very regular, very ordered fashion, that is a good thing. And he reaffirmed his belief, and his faith was reaffirmed in 1540 when the Pope issued a bull or a statement that created the Society of Jesus. Okay, his Jesuits were a monastic order, a group of monks they're called regular clergy, a group of monks who went around and really tried to spread Catholicism throughout the world. And again, his most significant act and the most important thing he did was to found the Society of Jesus. So what are a couple of his beliefs? Well, being that he was Catholic, he said that it took two things to be saved. One, and go to heaven. One, faith in God. And two, good works. You have to do good things. Who is the authority? Well, Loyola extended a little bit and said the priests were. But in addition to the priest, the Bible was also an authority on religion, and the Bible is also a source of knowledge about the church. He said, and the question was, okay then, who makes up the church? What makes up the church body? And this is where he's really very different from the Protestant reformers. He said that the clergy, priests and monks, and anyone who actually basically working for the church were members of the church. And the lay people, as they're called, the people who aren't in the church, didn't make up the church. The real church were made up of those. And what's the best life in order to best serve God? Was that of being a monk. Regular prayer, working for the church, studying, prayer, basically meditation on God, that's prayer, and doing things for God. The best life was a monastic life, a simple life without having a lot of nice things, and that's one of the things that the Jesuits are known for, is they lived what's known as a very austere lifestyle, very poor, very humble lifestyle, because they felt that they were servants of God and should not be very ostentatious or showy with their wealth. And again, his major thing he wrote was spiritual exercises. So now that we've got the Reformation, let's talk about a few of the major effects of the Reformation on the rest of Europe. Okay, there are three areas that we're going to talk about when we look at the effects of the Reformation. The first area we're going to talk about is Germany. Okay, and when